Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried in The Housemaid. Are they actually scary? Horror doesn't always scream. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it whispers, and sometimes it looks exactly like Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried sharing a house that feels just a little too quiet. That's what makes The Housemaid so unsettling, and why people are already asking the same question. Are they scary, or are they something worse? The answer isn't simple, and that's exactly the point.
You're a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without you. Millie.
Whatever devil's inside you.
Why The Housemaid isn't traditional horror. If you're expecting jump scares, loud music cues, or monsters lurking in the dark, The Housemaid isn't playing that game. This story belongs to a more uncomfortable category: psychological horror rooted in power, secrecy, and slow realization. The fear here doesn't come from what happens. It comes from who is in control, and from how long it takes to notice. That's where Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried become genuinely frightening. Not because they're loud or violent, but because they understand restraint.
I'm either crazed or having some kind of breakdown or acting like a monster.
The core question: what kind of scary are we talking about? Before diving into performances, let's clarify something important. There are two kinds of scary in film: external fear, monsters, killers, chaos; internal fear, paranoia, manipulation, loss of control. The Housemaid lives almost entirely in the second category. So the real question isn't, are Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried scary like horror villains? It's, are they scary because they feel possible? And that's where the discomfort starts to grow.
Andrew, I told you that.
She'd be part of the family.
Sydney Sweeney, the fear of not knowing who to trust. Sydney Sweeney's strength as an actress has always been her emotional transparency. She doesn't play characters who hide everything. She plays characters who feel too much. And that's exactly why she works so well in psychological thrillers. In The Housemaid, her fear doesn't explode outward. It turns inward. Her performance is built on uncertainty, hesitation before speaking, eyes that linger too long on small details, a constant sense of recalculating reality. She makes you feel what it's like to slowly realize that something is wrong, but not know how wrong or why. That kind of fear is deeply unsettling because it mirrors real-life anxiety. Haven't we all been in situations where we sensed something was off but couldn't explain it? Where the danger wasn't obvious, but our instincts kept whispering? Sydney Sweeney weaponizes that feeling. She doesn't need to scream. She doesn't need to run. Her fear lives in silence, in pauses, in moments where the audience is thinking, why didn't she leave yet? And then realizing, maybe she can't. Amanda Seyfried, the smile that makes you uneasy. If Sydney Sweeney represents vulnerability, Amanda Seyfried represents control. And that's where the imbalance becomes terrifying. Amanda Seyfried has mastered a very specific kind of performance over the years, the calm, composed exterior with something quietly wrong underneath. She doesn't play villains who announce themselves. She plays characters who convince you they're harmless. In The Housemaid, her presence feels stable, grounded, polite, too polite. Her fear factor comes from restraint, perfect posture, soft voice, emotional responses that feel delayed. You start noticing small inconsistencies, not enough to accuse, but enough to doubt. And doubt is the engine of psychological horror. She doesn't threaten. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't chase anyone. She simply exists in a way that makes you question your own judgment. That's far scarier than aggression.
All I'm asking, baby.
Power dynamics, the real source of fear. What makes The Housemaid genuinely disturbing isn't any single character. It's the imbalance between them. One woman belongs in the house, the other works inside it. That alone creates tension. Add wealth, class, dependence, and emotional leverage, and suddenly the house isn't just a setting, it's a system. Amanda Seyfried's character holds power through money, social status, control over space. Sydney Sweeney's character holds power through observation, proximity, access to secrets. Neither is fully safe. Neither is fully innocent. And that mutual vulnerability is terrifying because it means anything could shift at any moment. Have you noticed how the scariest horror stories often involve everyday environments? Homes, families, workplaces? That's not accidental.
These characters that they have a giant fire within them to survive, and because they are trapped in certain ways. And what's amazing is that they relate to each other more than you think. And yeah.
The house as a psychological trap. In The Housemaid, the house isn't just a backdrop. It's a character. It's quiet, ordered, beautiful, and slowly suffocating. The horror doesn't come from locked doors. It comes from invisible boundaries, from rules that are never written down but clearly enforced, from expectations that shift without warning. Sydney Sweeney's character doesn't feel trapped because she's physically restrained. She feels trapped because leaving feels risky, staying feels dangerous, trust feels impossible. Amanda Seyfried's character, on the other hand, seems completely at ease, almost too comfortable, and that contrast creates dread. Are they scary individually or together? Here's the most important point. Neither performance would be nearly as scary without the other. Sydney Sweeney alone would feel anxious but sympathetic. Amanda Seyfried alone would feel mysterious but distant. Together, they create psychological friction. Every conversation feels like a negotiation. Every silence feels intentional. Every smile feels loaded. You start analyzing body language, tone shifts, who holds eye contact longer, who breaks it first. And suddenly, you're not just watching a thriller, you're participating in it. That's when fear becomes immersive. Why this horror feels adult and uncomfortable. The Housemaid doesn't rely on shock. It relies on recognition. The fear here isn't supernatural. It's social, emotional, structural. It asks uncomfortable questions. What happens when someone depends on you, and you know it? How much control is too much control? Can kindness become a weapon? These aren't fantasy fears. They're real-world dynamics exaggerated just enough to feel unsafe. Sydney Sweeney's performance taps into the fear of being unseen and unheard. Amanda Seyfried's taps into the fear of smiling authority, the kind that never needs to explain itself. That combination is chilling because it reflects systems people actually live inside. Psychological horror works best when it's quiet. Some of the most effective horror films in history barely raise their voices. They let tension accumulate. They trust the audience to feel uncomfortable without being told to. The Housemaid seems to follow that tradition. Instead of, "Here's the threat," it says, "Something is wrong. Figure out what." Sydney Sweeney's reactions guide the audience emotionally. Amanda Seyfried's presence keeps them unsettled intellectually. You feel something before you understand it. That delay, that gap between instinct and clarity, is where fear lives. So, are they scary? Yes, but not in the obvious way. Sydney Sweeney is scary because she makes you feel trapped inside uncertainty. Amanda Seyfried is scary because she makes control look gentle. Together, they're terrifying because they blur the line between safety and danger. There are no monsters here, no masks, no jump scares, just two women, one house, and a growing realization that not all threats look like threats. The Housemaid doesn't try to scare you into jumping. It tries to scare you into thinking, into watching faces, into questioning intentions, into feeling uncomfortable in familiar spaces. Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried aren't scary because they're extreme. They're scary because they're precise. And that kind of horror lingers long after the screen goes dark. If you enjoy deep dives into psychological thrillers, hidden horror, and performances that unsettle rather than scream, like this video, subscribe for more breakdowns and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. And tell us, what scares you more? The monster you can see or the one who smiles at you every day?